For many years, ever since online gaming was possible, people would find ways to exploit the mechanics of video games, use items and gear that were very annoying to deal with, but worst of all, use third-party programs specifically designed to cheat in PvP modes.
What am I playing, bro? Oh my god! Oh my god! God.
I also just stared at the ash of the wall. Oh, come. Wait, huh? 13 people, different people, have submitted codes of this person in 13 separate games.
Safe.
Over time, as the gaming industry grew, more and more players started asking for games to be better balanced. Not necessarily to make every game competitive, but at the very least, more fair. While developers started to get a better grasp of the ever-changing game balance, there's still one big issue that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. This, of course, is finding better and more effective ways to detect and ban hackers and additional programs that give the user a clear advantage over any legit player who is playing the game as intended. It's a non-stop battle to not only keep these bad actors out from poisoning the overall experience, but also to protect users and the game servers from being compromised and subjected to DDoS attacks and other malicious actions. It's sad to see that we still don't seem to have a straightforward answer to this problem. In this video, I'll be discussing some examples of how people cheated in a few games, and what methods were used to detect and ban them. Towards the end, I'll also discuss what methods we might see in the near future, hopefully, that will make cheating in an online game less relevant. Before we begin, if you do find this topic interesting and want to see less cheaters, please give this video a like, and consider sharing and subscribing for more videos like this. Let's start by quoting Carl Jobst. For those who don't know him, Carl makes videos about people who obtain the world record for speedruns for different games, but he also covers people who cheated in these games as well. This includes some of those speedruns as well as accusing Billy Mitchell of cheating for his high score in Donkey Kong. And to be clear, even though it is wrapping up, I'm not going to be discussing the Billy Mitchell case. With that out of the way, the quote by Carl Jobst is this: "Players don't cheat to get faster times, they cheat to get times faster." The underlying message of that quote is that anyone is capable of cheating.
I bought them on the 29th, yesterday. I bought them yesterday. I lost in finals 3 times yesterday on Warzone, so I got mad.
It doesn't matter how much skill someone may have or if they are the top 5 best players in the world. There is always that chance of stealing the world record with one cheated run. And the more skilled and more understanding a player is with the game's systems, the more likely it is for them to craft a cheated speedrun that would be difficult if not near impossible to detect. However, I'm going to be the optimist here and say that there is a surefire way to detect cheaters. I also want to clarify that I don't think everyone who is remotely good at a game is cheating. We can also discuss how or why lesser skilled players would have more incentive to cheat, but that's not the point of this video. A while ago, I made a breakdown video of a clip from the Warzone player ZLaner that was being used to accuse him of cheating. I'm not going to outright defend ZLaner or anyone else, but when it comes to certain specific scenarios, I feel I have a good understanding of these games to at the very least confirm unnatural behavior, if not confirm the person is hacking. I've also done hacker breakdown videos of people who are clearly hacking and explaining the telltale signs. Simply put, people will cheat regardless of their skill level, and that's something you should always keep in mind. Now let's look at some tools people use to cheat in video games. In first-person shooters, we know the typical cheats such as an aimbot, which the program aims for you, and wall hacking, which shows where everyone is on the map in real time. There are also other ways to cheat in this kind of game, such as using a keyboard and mouse to play the game on a PlayStation or Xbox console. This doesn't seem to be like a big issue at first, but in games where there's no crossplay or where there are fewer instances of a weaker version of aim assist such as Overwatch, or a game that has no aim assist for controllers such as Rainbow Six Siege, it can lead to a big advantage. In the same manner, we also have the opposite happening on PC, where there is unique software that users will try to use to convince the game that they're using a controller instead of keyboard and mouse, which would then give them aim assist while using a mouse input. Then, there are programmable scripts that can be made with either a specialized controller such as the Cronus, or PC software that could be used to adjust the recoil for any weapon automatically. And by adjusting, I mean it automatically moves the crosshair without any additional input by the user to remove the recoil of any weapon. Fortunately, when it comes to these input-based cheats, they can be detected rather easily. We may still see some of these options available as part of a larger cheat program, but at the very least some of these simpler software and hardware options are blocked off from being used in most online games. The problem isn't necessarily any of these cheats or how they're used, but it's how they're packaged. Think of it similar to a computer virus or malware. Most viruses and malware still do the same thing today as they did 10 years ago. However, they are still being made, pushed out online, and infecting new computers. It's not because these viruses are any more harmful to a modern day PC, but it's because they're being packaged in a way to bypass detection. This is why it's very important to keep your antivirus programs up to date as soon as you can, whether you use Microsoft Defender, Malwarebytes, or other programs. Now, the question some people may ask, why do these viruses seem to be detected sooner than a hacking program in a video game? And that's mainly because these hacking programs are built specifically to bypass the security of each video game. For instance, in this example, I will never run Norton or McAfee antivirus programs on my machines. The reason is that they are the most targeted programs to be bypassed by viruses and malware. It's the same kind of scenario for video games. A cheat program that works for one game may immediately be detected by another game's anti-cheat system. As much as we'd all like to have an anti-cheat program that can instantly detect when the game is being tampered with and ban anyone who shows up, that's not always going to be enough to catch every single cheater. I believe from here on out, any game that's any bit serious about providing a fair and balanced gameplay experience should include a built-in replay system with as many tools as possible. Fast forward, rewind, free cam, turning on and off the heads-up display, etc, etc. At first, this can sound impractical. How can a game that thousands of people are playing be able to record hundreds or thousands of matches that are constantly going on each and every day? The file size of these recordings should be massive. But if we were to look at a game like Rocket League, we see the size of a replay file is barely a megabyte. This is because the game isn't recording the match like a video file. Instead, there are other ways to record matches. One simple method is replaying the location of each player during a match. There may not be any additional value to it, but at least you can see where everyone was and how they were moving at any given time. Another method, and one that is far more valuable, is when a replay has a recording of every single input every player is making, and then replace those inputs in the order the server or the game received those commands. The upside to the system is that every input is being recorded, which can show irregularities with someone's gameplay. The downside is that sometimes these replays can be prone to being manipulated by the user. However, these replays would have to be tampered with after they are created. So, if you have a match where 5 people save the replay, and only one of those replays doesn't look the same, it's almost guaranteed that this one replay is not legit. There are also other preventative measures, such as having a code for the raw replay that's saved by the game itself and not by any user, which would then prevent any sort of possible tampering. A good example of this is what happened with Trackmania. In 2021, many world records for track times at Trackmania were removed. In this game, users would submit their replays to report a world record. However, the original live run was done with the speed of the game being slowed down in half. The reason why this is such a big advantage is because it allows users to make small, micro adjustments faster than in real time. By the end of a run, and when it's shown in real time, it would look mostly normal. But if you looked into the inputs themselves, we would see that certain inputs would have been applied so quickly that it would be humanly impossible to replicate. This is an issue that occurs in other games, usually in the speedrun community, such as the original Doom. In regards to tampering with the actual replay file, it has been done before in Rocket League. In this case, the player found a way to change the values in the replay to get their desired results. However, one quick look at watching the replay itself would show these inconsistencies that are anything but normal.
Perspective, the ball trajectory was very strange. It sped up, slowed down, and sped up again, and randomly zipped away from the goal before the explosion occurred. I guess Shimmy didn't want you to see where the ball really was, so he just made it zip out of sight and didn't think anyone would notice because it all happened so quickly.
For a more detailed explanation, I highly recommend you watch Carl's videos on this situation. The main takeaway is that these replays weren't being caught by the game itself, but by a few dedicated players who manually review these inputs, noticed the discrepancies, and in the case of Trackmania, created a new system to verify these replays. Along with these findings, the developers of the game created a specialized competitive patch in the Trackmania game. And as you can imagine, for first or third person shooters, the evidence that can be seen in a replay system would be painfully obvious. And as mentioned before, allowing players to have access to the raw replay files saved by the game itself can be very valuable for the community to confirm or deny any cheating allegations. However, this does pose another problem. Not every replay can be manually reviewed. It would simply take too long to be effective, and no company is going to dedicate an entire workforce to do nothing but watch replays all day long. There is a possible solution to this that can make any game as close to airtight as possible against most hacking programs. Some of you may have already guessed it at this point, but let's just quickly go over what we discussed. Regardless of how good a player may be, there's always that temptation to cheat because they don't want to put in the time to win legitimately. There are also weapon recoil scripts and hardware programs built to cheat, but for the most part can be easily detected and prevented on their own. but there are still those specially designed programs to bypass the game's detection methods and allow users to turn on aimbots, wall hacking, and other unfair features to get an advantage against everyone else. The only upside to this is that most cheats are fairly easy to notice in a replay, and so long as the game has an untouched copy of each replay, the community would have that additional information to determine who is and isn't cheating. As for automatically detecting these cheats, well, the solution isn't to try and detect the cheating software or how the game is being tampered with. While yes, any exploit or tampering of game files should be detected and patched out as soon as possible for the sake of everyone, it is simply not fast or effective enough for players to not run into those cheaters every day. Add to that, even if these exploits are found in a few days, the actual ban wave may not happen until a month or two later. First, the developers would have to fix the exploit itself, then they wait a few weeks or a month to issue a ban wave. This is to throw out the cheat providers and cause a lot of headaches, so they have less information about how the program was detected. I don't think I need to say what the problem is with the solution, but leaving cheaters unaccounted for a couple of months at a time is only going to add more fuel to the fire and have more players cheating each time. Again, at least something is being done and some accounts are being banned, but not all of them. And at the rate that these ban waves are being pushed out, it might take a cheat provider an extra week to find the next exploit. It's a vicious, unending cycle that simply isn't effective enough. If a game has a replay system that includes the inputs of each player, and a system that can review these inputs, be it AI powered or otherwise, we wouldn't have to wait months for a ban wave. And in the case of tournaments and people playing for money, we wouldn't have to wait for the cheater to be found out years later. In the case of these tournaments, the replays can be reviewed by whoever's moderating the tournament right there and then. At the end of the day, it would be great if cheaters could be detected before they could even open up their game, but that unfortunately is just not going to be possible. But if we can self-moderate with built-in replay systems and tools, as well as the game's developers having their own automated replay scanning systems, it would be very difficult for most cheaters to go undetected. And that's all we can hope for. It's 2024, and there's no reason for any online cheating account to go unpunished any longer than 6 months. But with what I'm proposing and hoping would be effective, no active online cheating account would go unpunished after 6 weeks. And that might be where the next evolution of anti-cheat systems may go. Last year, we saw the discussion of a new system called AnyBrain, which is an AI learning system that claims to be able to watch the recording of any player in any game and detect those impossible macro movements that could not be done naturally by a human and correctly mark them as hacking or cheating. Even in the game PUBG, they announced that they have included an AI system in their anti-cheat. However, I feel that the game, even though it does have a big fan base, most of it is not in North America anymore. I don't really know how effective it is as I don't play the game, and none of us really know what AI system they're running or what it was trained for specifically. I know one big concern about this will be how many legitimate players are going to be wrongly banned by the AI. And while I wouldn't say that this will not happen, we don't know how many or which AI systems these games will use. But my solution for that is to have a threshold to trigger a ban. So instead of banning an account for one instance of sketchy aim, it would look for multiple instances. And once it sees that pattern of a player aiming in a very certain specific way that is pixel perfect multiple times, that can then result in a ban as that is unnatural. And there are also other unnatural behaviors that can be seen and detected by this kind of program. This is why it's AI and it will have to undergo a learning process. And with a system like AnyBrain, based on their interview with Basically Homeless, they have preventative measures that can make the program more or less strict on what it's detecting.
We always start with a very high threshold, meaning that we do not necessarily catch everybody, but everybody that we're catching, we're 100% sure. We usually see between maybe 10, 15, 20% of players that are cheating. We are fairly certain that the phenomenon is much higher than that.
Again, I'm sure there may be a fringe case of 1 or 2 highly skilled players who will get falsely flagged, but that can be contested and resolved. And even more so if the game has a built-in replay system so we could all see for ourselves. Either way, I do hope we see massive improvements to these anti-cheat systems as soon as possible. And to end this video off, in honor of his retirement, until we actually see what happens, remember, this is only a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Thank you, MatPat, and everyone who made game theory possible.